everybody, and welcome. Deborah Lynn here in the studio. Well, I have a bunch of my discarded art that I have here. I collected. We all make junk art, okay? Art that just goes bad and things just go wrong. And I've learned to not always, some of them I have to throw away, but some I think I can save. So I keep them and I put them in a pile. And when I feel like it, I might pull one out. And some of my most beautiful art that I've created have been from a pile of junk. But then there's other pieces that might not be able to be turned into a piece of art, but you can make a beautiful note card from it. So I'm going through my pile here and I'm inspecting what I have and trying to figure out which pieces I can probably turn into note cards. So this is one I'm going to turn into note cards. The other one that's off to the left that I just had, that one is going to be my first one. And what I'm going to do here, first of all, I've got a sketch pad down on my table, my work surface, because while I'm doing these cards, I'm also going to be putting some, so that's what I'm using. I'm just using a sketch pad. And it's a real large size one. I think it's 18 by 24. And I'm going to kind of offload a lot of my pigments that I'm using onto this paper because I'm going to make collage paper then later with it. And I'll show you a little bit of an example of what I'm talking about, but I am going to probably do a tutorial here coming up how to do these collage papers, and I'm telling you, they're so, when you're stressed out and you just want to just escape, it's like a mindless thing to do, and it's fun, and you're in the pigments, and it's got a lot of color, and it's really uplifting. So I want to show you how I go about making some collage papers, and I'll do that in the future here. But right now I'm going to fix up this piece of art that did not go well for me. I've got some of my supplies out here. I've got some pencils, and I've got some pigment sticks, and that's just a piece of watercolor that broke off the tip of one of those pencils, and I'm just putting it into play. So I'm just scribbling on that sketch pad because that is going to end up being full of paint eventually. And I'm going to show you that process in another tutorial, but I will give you an example of what I'm talking about as we move through this tutorial. But what I wanted to tell you, this small piece of art that I have in my hand that I'm going to be fixing up, the front side, of course, you see there's some kind of like pink looking flowers. The back side was also a painting. I flipped it over and painted on the back, and it was a disaster. The whole thing is just a nightmare, and that will be coated with acrylic. I will put like white acrylic down on it. I think I had to put like 3 coats on it to cover it up. And so that's how I'm gonna create this card. The front side is gonna be watercolor. The inside will have an acrylic inside. So I'm going to use gouache, okay? And I could go in and use watercolor, but usually when there's already a lot of pigment on the paper, watercolor may not do the trick. And what I've learned is that sometimes pushing the pigment levels, you have to use heavier consistency of paint or use gouache to cover up the imperfections that are in a piece like this that need help. So what I'm going to do here is I do have watercolor going on right now, but I'm using it, a lot of it straight from the tube was I put in that well, and then I'm putting that paintbrush straight in that pigment and putting it on the paper. I'm not holding back. I'm not holding back. I'm not stingy with my paint. I'm pretty much going straight into the pigment and then onto the paper. There's some moisture on that skinny brush, some water, but not a whole lot. And that needs to happen because I really need to wake this whole thing up, okay, and build on top of it. Okay, now if I had weak paint on top of it, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't do enough. You wouldn't get what you were looking for. Okay, so now I'm just going in. I'm just adding some elements. I'm just adding some like little texture, like weeds I'm making. Nothing in particular. This is all made up from my imagination. And I'm not using any reference. I like to work very intuitively when I work. So that's what's going on here. This card is not going to need a lot of painting on it. It was pretty in its ugly stage, okay? It wasn't bad. And it didn't need a lot of paint. It needed a lot of paint, but it didn't need a lot of attention, okay? But I am going to bling it out here in a minute, and I'll show you how I go about doing that also. I'm going to end up doing several of these cards, so if you get bored with a section, just kind of thumb through it and speed past if you want. But I do talk about the collage paper a little bit, so it's up to you how you want to watch this. And if you don't like me talking and you just would rather listen or watch me, you can just mute me and turn me off. Okay, so here's the gouache. Okay, I can't even remember. Okay, I did this like a week or two ago. What these, I think it's violet, and I'm not even sure. But I will drop a link in my Amazon shop to this gouache that I have here, okay? So you can get your hands on some decent gouache. This stuff is highly pigmented. This is a really nice set of gouache. You can get really inexpensive gouache, and I've done that before. It was just a waste of money. You might as well just get the decent stuff when you can afford it and be done with it. You know, you don't use it all the time, so it lasts for a long time. So anyway, maybe you want to use it a lot. For me, I don't use it that often. So I'm just going in and just doing some small detail work. Not a lot, just a little bit here. So that's what you're seeing coming into play. Baby wipes. Always need baby wipes in the studio because my hands are always a mess. My hands never look good anymore. I really need to go get professional manicure. Maybe that would help. Probably not. They're just a hot mess, and they're always full of ink. Does everybody else have messed up hands also? I go run to the store, and the girl at the store probably must think, God, lady, what's wrong with your hands? Oh, I'm a mess. And this is actually fun to do. Sometimes we're so busy creating pieces of art that we might put on a wall. Sometimes it's a little bit fun to be a little crafty with our creativity and take a break. Sometimes I find that, I was sick for 5 weeks with a really bad virus, and it really knocked me out, and I just have had the hardest time getting back into everything, and these small projects have helped tremendously. So I've been experimenting a lot when I've had little peaks of time where I had some energy, and I would go in the studio and I would work a little bit, and I was doing a lot of experimenting. So I've kind of come up with some kind of cool things. And but right now we're going to make some cards. And then again, I do have that collage paper that I want to show you. I do have a class that I'm going to attend here in my area. There's a collage class that I'm going to go to, and it said that you could bring your own collage papers, I guess, if you wanted to. So I'm not gonna insult the instructor and bring a huge arsenal, but I'm gonna bring a few just in case I want to pull them out of my purse and throw them into play. So I want to make some. So that's what I'm working on. And I don't know if any of you are into junk journaling. Some people like to work in journals and create junk journals. That's just journals for themselves that they're never going to be a painting. They're just sit on a shelf. It's just for your eyes only. And sometimes these making these see how I'm offloading my pigment onto the paper. So that'll all pigment is just going to saturate this entire piece of paper eventually. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. I got distracted by me watching me offload my pigment onto that sketch pad. I lost my train of thought. Okay, I'm zooming in. And yeah, you need to focus on keeping that in range. A lot of times I cut off my videos and I don't know it. Okay, so there's the back. Oh, that's so bad. What happened to poor Deb that day? So that will get painted with acrylic, but I'm not going to take you through the torture of me showing you how I paint the back completely white because it's just painting the back completely white with 3 coats of acrylic paint. But I have folded the piece in half, and I use a tool, a boning tool, to make that edge nice and crisp. I have some ribbon. I'll drop a link to that also in my Amazon shop. So if you go to my the section where it's got the descriptions and everything, you'll find my Amazon shop, a link to my Amazon shop. So when you get into the Amazon shop, you'll see categories, like you'll see paintbrushes and you'll see paint and see supplies. You'll see all those things. So they're kind of all categorized, so you can get into each one of those categories and look around. But you're going to find like the gouache will be in the paint, and the ribbon will be under probably supplies, and the archival ink that you see will also be dropped into the paints. So you'll find all that. So you just have to go to the Amazon link that is provided. I do make a small commission on those purchases. It doesn't increase the price of what you're purchasing. I just happen, because I bring you to them, they give me a small percentage. Okay, so this is just a stamp that I bought at Hobby Lobby. And I have the archival ink by Ranger in green. And it is such a pretty green. It's like an olive green. And I love olive green, because even look at my ribbon. It's kind of like olive. I just have a thing for olive green. I don't know why, but I do. So I'm just going to lay that right down in that upper right-hand corner, because I'm thinking about composition a little bit though too, because this is a card. This is the front of the card, and I'm pressing straight down. Try not to rock if you rock your stamp, then what happens is you get kind of a blurred image. So you don't want to do that. You just want to press straight down. Don't rock. I made that mistake on one of my pieces. And I'm just going to go in and I'm like that. I'm not even going to put the whole stamp on it. I'm just going to put a section of it on there and just drop a little bit of writing here and there, just to get things to look the way that I feel it looks aesthetically pleasing. And then I'm going to offload my ink onto that pad because that paper will eventually be full of all kinds of pigments. And then you cut up the paper, you can do whatever, you can tear it up and put it in your junk journal, put it into an acrylic painting, do whatever you want with it. And I'm not going to tell you what the other idea is. You're going to have to wait for the tutorial because it's a really, really, not only does it make really cool collage paper, it also makes something else, and it's so cool. And so you'll have to wait for that tutorial that's coming up. So this is just some of the collage paper that I've created. This is just a small smidgen of what I've created. And so this is an example of what this looks like cut up. So that's basically what I'm talking about. And you can have fun with all those sheets of paper. And it's not like a heavy weight watercolor paper that you're using for collage, because sometimes for collage watercolor paper is a little bit too thick. By using the sketch paper, it's much thinner. It's only 70 pounds. And so, but these sketch pads I'm finding to be able to handle the water pretty well. Not a lot of rippling, of course, going on, but handles things pretty well. Okay, now the thing is with this paper, this was Saunders Waterford that I was using that was on a gum block on this painting. And it had like an edge with like black, glue on it. So of course I had to get my cutter out and I had to clean those edges. Now, if you're going to make cards, you really want to have one of these cutters, because to make a card and use a pair of scissors to cut it straight, it's just not going to work well. So if you can invest in a cutter, and sometimes you don't have to buy the best one. I will drop a link to this one, but they also, Cricut also makes inexpensive ones that are not too expensive, and they're worth having for your supplies. And here I'm just cutting the ribbon in the direction that I want. So there's like two pointy tails on the end of the ribbon. And this ribbon I'm just going to wrap around this card because this card is a little bit bigger than the normal. And so I wouldn't be able to find an envelope, nor do I want to make one. So I'm just going to use a ribbon to present it, okay? So that's how it would be presented. But here's the thing. If we give somebody a card like this, okay, and it's got all this pigment on it, we have got to seal it. Okay, that's the next one that's I'm going to start creating, okay? And here you're seeing me fold them and cut them. So, but we have to seal these pieces of, well, they're not pieces, well, they are pieces, little pieces of art, but we have to seal these cards, these note cards. So I'm just making sure everything's nice and straight and the edges are all cut clean. I want everything nice and uniform and professional looking. So I just clean all those edges up really well, okay? Now, this one, okay, what am I going to end up? Let's get everything out of the way. And then, okay, so this is the one that I'm going to work on. Now, this one is going to get some bleed-proof white on it. Now, this one takes me on a little journey that I kind of stumble around a little bit on this one because I start doing some dingy thing. Although I did dingy things on this painting, as you can see, this is very abstract. It doesn't even really look like a flower, but I put this bleed-proof white down, and then I start doing dingy things, and you'll see. I have to end up getting acrylic paint out. Okay, so you're going to see me go through the process of putting bleed-proof white down, but in the end, acrylic paint comes out to save the day. So So that's what's so if you have even if you can't afford like the expensive acrylic paints, let's say Golden or Liquitex or Nova Colors or whatever, if you can't afford any of that, you know, Master's Touch has really great acrylic paint that you can get, and every other week it's on sale. And the other thing is you can always just use the craft acrylic paint also that you can get for like, you know, $2 or less a little container. And I use that for some stuff. So, you know, there's always that idea. You don't always have to spend a fortune, especially on little craft projects like this. So this is where I get a little dingy. So what did I do? I covered up this area with bleed proof white because it had all these like weird lines going all over, because I like doing this thing with lines. I don't know what it is with me. But then what do? I do it all over again. It's like, oh my goodness. So I'm doing it all over again. I am doing it all over again. Oh my, and it just goes horribly wrong here. And I'm getting frustrated at this point because I can see it's a hot mess. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? And could it be okay? In person, maybe on screen it looks like it might be okay. But in person, I just was not, I wasn't buying it. So it's going to change here in a minute. So here I'm just playing a little bit and just putting some little marks down. Yeah, I'm pausing because I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I do this tap, 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 tap. So I like to make these lines, but I also do that a lot. It's weird how we kind of do repetitive things over and over again. And I do that. I paint a lot that way. If I have a bigger brush in my hand, I do the same thing. You'll see that happening when I'm making my collage paper on the sketch pad. You'll see a lot of that mark making in weird ways like this. You know, when you think about it, when you doodle, everybody doodles a certain way. So if everybody was given a pad to doodle on, and we're everybody's going to do something different. It's kind of weird. We'll all do something different. Some people might make squiggles, some might make circles, some might make triangles, some might make squares, some might make lines, some might just draw. So everybody kind of doodles differently. And I have a tendency I've always done the same thing. And it was I make squares all the time. I'm always making squares. And it's so weird because if I get into doing my abstracts with acrylics or even with some watercolor, I have this pixelated cubism that I like to do. It always shows up. It's kind of interesting. So I'd love to hear what you guys doodle, and does it show up in your art? Drop that in the link. Let me know what you're doing. If you see a connection to that, it's definitely a connection for me. I'm seeing it play out. My doodling plays out into my actual art. So there's the acrylic. Okay, I just have some white acrylic paint, and it's mixing with the wet pigments that are already on that paper. And I'm just kind of gonna, and you can see I'm kind of just doing like little There, I just put like little square marks down. I don't know. That's what I do. So that's how I saved this very, very abstract. I don't even know if you can call it a flower. It's just kind of an abstract painting card. So hopefully the person that gets it doesn't say, "What the heck was that?" I think it actually, when it's all said and done, when it's all finished, it's actually really pretty. This is gloss spray. So it is acrylic, but it's a very high gloss shine to it. So when it's dry, your watercolor has a tendency to be very matte, and the acrylic that I just put down will have some sheen to it, but the gloss that I'm putting down is even shinier. So you're seeing interest in the piece. There's texture and interest in it. So I'm just cleaning up right now a couple of those little gloss spots that flew onto that pink area that I said no. And then I did it again, and then I left it. So it's all dry. I took a blow dryer to it. I'm not going to torture you with you watching me with a blow dryer, but I dried the card, and now I have the archival ink out. It's a little bit smaller pad than the last one, but I'm just going to rub that over the stamp, and I'm going to go ahead and put that strategically on the card where I feel that it would look the best. So I'm trying to assess exactly where I need to do that. And so this is like a dark purple color, and I thought it would be nice. See, I rocked right there. That rocking created kind of a blurry image to the words, but it's on the back. It'll be fine. And now I'm just going to go into the inside of the card because it has a little bit of paint on the inside. So I figured I'll just put some of this writing on the white of the inside. I can still write on top of it and it'd still be able to understand what I'm writing, but I needed to kind of clean it up and cover it. So that was my way of doing things. So here's what I'm doing here is I got this packet of envelopes and note cards, blank note cards from a craft store. And I'm just going to use the envelopes from this right now. And I'm going to put this card that I've created into one of those envelopes. So that's what's happening here. But I am cleaning the edges and making sure that it's cut enough so it slips right into that envelope. And do I need to cut it just a little bit more? It was just a little bit too big. So if I just take just a little bit more off, it should fit right in there. Perfect. Snug as a bug. Okay, now I'm going to bling out the envelope. Okay, because we're going to present this to somebody. So we're going to want to bling it out. We don't want to just give them a white envelope. That's just not artistic now, is it? No, it's not. I'm offloading my ink pad there, filling up that white or that sketch pad. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tray here of my paints, and I'm going to put some pigment down, and then you're going to see how I put this envelope with it. I'm going to put the envelope in the pigment and just create kind of an abstract on the envelope. But you have to keep in mind that you don't want the glue area to get wet. So be very careful not to get that area wet. And you'll also have to have a blow dryer available so you can kind of dry things also. So I'm putting some pigment down. Here's what I want to tell you with this, and you'll see this happening. I I have too much water with my pigment. It needs to be a little bit heavier consistency when you do these envelopes, so they have a little bit more strength and color. Otherwise, they dry too light. They come out little, like there needs to be more saturation of color. So I'm not putting enough pigment down. You might think there's a lot there, but there's a lot of water within that paint that's sitting on the tray, and I'm not going to get what I want out of it, and I'm going to have to add more after the fact. Okay, so as you can see, it's a little bit boring. It needs more. So I poured some pigment on there, and now I'm just going to splash in some more, a little bit heavier consistency of some olive green, and just kind of wake it up a little bit. I will be bringing in some hot pink here in just a moment. And when I use a really bright color like hot pink, or like opera pink, or any fluorescent kind of colors, I have a tendency to want to put them in the front versus in the back. So they really, really make the painting sing if you put them on the top surface. So that hot pink, you can see it kind of floating there on the top, just kind of wakes everything up. And the air dryer, that really kind of caused some tendrils to kind of create some cool movement in the piece. So I'll do this. So I'm blow drying the front side, but I'm also going to paint the back, and of course the back will need to be painted. And then we need to seal our pieces, because the last thing you want to happen is for the person you gave it to go home, throw it on a wet counter or something, and they pick up the card later and it stained their kitchen counter or something. You don't want that to happen. And you might want to say, just be careful, don't put it anywhere where it could get wet. So with a piece like this, I would definitely give them that little warning not to do a certain thing. But you can seal them, but I would still give them the warning. You'd say it's sealed, but anything can happen. So just be careful. So there's my little card. It's all done. Now I'm going to tuck it away in its little envelope. I'm just kind of straightening it out. And so there's a little card with an envelope. And I'm just going to tie it with just a little bit of this ribbon. Again, the ribbon will be in the Amazon shop. It's really cool. It's like a velvet. It's really thin, kind of like velvet ribbon. And it comes on a spool. I think the whole thing was like $20, something like that. Okay, a larger sheet. It's going to be cut in half. And I'm going to paint both halves at the same time. And so I'll have 2 cards. And again, we're going to really have to bump this up. I was testing some paint with this one, and the paints were really chalky and not very vibrant. So that's where I gave up on this painting, because the paints were the problem. Okay, so this is just me going in with some green watercolor. And again, the consistency level is thick, okay? It's not a lot of there's not a lot of water here. Just you're finding just a little bit of it on my brush, and then I dip it into that paint and then onto the paper. Gouache, heavier consistency. Yes, it's pink and I'm putting it over orange. It's just gonna kind of give it an interesting kind of interesting colors going on. So it's not just a couple colors, it's like 3 colors now. So I've got the orange and the violet and the pink. Okay, spray ink. Okay, I'm shaking it up really well. And I believe these are new ones that I got from, let's see, yes, these are, okay, so I've got a Delusions blue one. I'm not sure what color it is, but it's by Delusions by Ranger. And they have like really pretty shimmer. They're the shimmer ones. Really pretty. So that's going to go down and I'm going to spray some of that. So I'm just kind of opening the container. That's what's going on. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just going to spray just a little bit of that Delusions around. Of course, I have to get my wet brush and I'm going to break it up and move it around somewhat. But I'm grabbing my one-ply toilet paper because I'm probably going to have to do some blotting here in a minute, just to kind of control this spray ink. And just working some more green where needed. And I'm just attaching some of the buds, heads of the flowers to some stems so it makes it look like it's loose flowers. So that's what I was doing. And this is just a few of them that I've shown you here. I was busy making quite a few of them. I got a basket full of cards that I made. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's just, oh, this is the white gloss by Ranger by Dina Wakely. Okay, they have artists. Ranger has artists. They have Tim Holtz. They have Dina Wakely. They have, oh, I can't think of her name. She's got the Delusions. So they all have their kind of own kind of line that they rep. And the white is really cool. Now, you'd be thinking, oh, I'll get some of that gloss spray, but I'm not going to get white. Why do I want white? Just for that reason. Look at what it's doing, some cool stuff. I like the effects of what it did. I can usually do that with bleed proof white, but it's kind of fun to do it with a different product, and that one was the gloss spray. Looking for my brush, I think. What am I doing? Okay. What am I doing? Yeah, I'm looking for something. I was looking for that boning tool. I found it. Okay, so I'm making some sharp, nice, clean edges. And these are really kind of long. I really have to cut them down. So that'll happen here in just a moment. To chop off quite a bit there. And what I end up doing, and I'm not going to show you all the footage of it, but I use those ends and I just made some bookmarks with it. And then I did a little paper punch at the top and put ribbon through the top, and it has like a little tail on it so it sticks out of the book. So we're getting closer to completing this. This one I'm going to get the stamps out to bling it out just a little bit. And this one is going to get, what color is this one getting? I can't quite, I think this is getting blue. It's like a really dark navy blue. And I was able to pick up these ink pads at Hobby Lobby. They're usually $14, $15. Do you know that I was able to pick them up for a little over $3 a piece because they have clearance going on? Now, I don't know if they have any left because people scoop that stuff up pretty quick, but you know, if you don't catch it this year, make sure you catch it next year. It's always like you need to be checking Hobby Lobby here in the United States between the end of February and middle of March. That's when they do a lot of their inventory and they start putting orange clearance tags on everything, and they drop the prices significantly. I always pick up a lot of stuff at that time of the year. And the other thing, I'm going to give you another tip if you live in the United States. Valentine's Day, always treat yourself to new shoes at Dillard's. I get the best shoes I can pick up for next to nothing at Dillard's at Valentine's Day. So just heads up on that. Just a little tip if you have a Dillard's next to you. Now, certain areas of the United States, not everybody has it, and I get that. It's just limited to certain areas, but if you're in those areas, just giving you heads up. Okay, so I'm just kind of compiling some of the art supplies here, just kind of give you a bird's eye view of what I'm using. That's the fixative spray that I used. You'll find that again in the Amazon shop. And it's great. You can spray it on there, or you could use wax, Dolan's wax also, but that's a lot of work to go through that whole process. The spray fixative is really easy, and they hit it with a blow dryer and it's done. And so what am I doing here? I'm going to finish out these cards, and I've got this blue ribbon. Look how pretty this blue ribbon is. This is called Sorry ribbon, and it's raw silk. And they created in this really long run, okay? And they get to their probably 54 inches, and then they have to sew the ribbon together with another run of it until you have this real long scheme, or whatever you call it, of ribbon. And it's so beautiful, and the edges are kind of frayed, which makes it really cool. And Sorry ribbon is so pretty. I don't even like to use regular craft ribbon anymore after I've been using the Sorry ribbon. It's just so beautiful. And this is just me playing with a little bit of bead. I had like this idea that maybe I would hang some beads off of it. So I'm not even going to take you through the whole process because it didn't really quite turn out. I kind of left it on there, hanging there. You can see it here in a minute. But I think I end up pulling it off because it just looks didn't look right. We try ideas. We think maybe it'll work, and not always. See, it's a little wimpy. Somebody might say, now why do we have that on there? So here's my pile of what I've created. I hope you guys have enjoyed this informative, fun, crafty kind of thing that you can do with your art. Again, I'm just going to tie up. I think I'm going to be tying up one of these pieces that I have here with some more ribbon. And I'm going to let you just finish watching me as I play around here with my pieces I've created. You guys, I want you guys to be safe out there. This world is really, really bad right now. There's so much craziness going on in the world. And it's really, really important that everybody stays safe and really stay healthy, stay well, because there's a really bad virus out there. Because I had it and it knocked me out for 5 weeks. So stay healthy, and may God bless each and every one of you. Bye for now.
The fuel injection, drop the clutch, pedal to the floor.